The U.S. China trade war has escalated, reaching a fever pitch. What began as a series of trade disagreements has now evolved into a full-blown economic conflict, with both nations digging in their heels and preparing for a prolonged standoff. Former President Trump, reinstituting his aggressive trade policies, announced a significant increase in tariffs on Chinese goods. This move was part of a broader strategy to pressure China into making concessions on various trade issues, including intellectual property rights and market access for American companies. The existing tariff of 104% was hiked to 125%, a move met with swift retaliation from Beijing. The Chinese government, unwilling to appear weak in the face of American pressure, responded with its own set of tariffs, targeting key American exports such as soybeans, automobiles, and electronics. China, in turn, raised tariffs on U.S. goods to 125%, mirroring the American action. This tit-for-tat strategy has led to increased costs for businesses on both sides of the Pacific, with many companies struggling to absorb the higher expenses or pass them on to consumers. This tit-for-tat exchange marked a new low in the already strained trade relations between the world's two largest economies. The impact of these tariffs has been felt across various sectors, from agriculture to technology, and has created an atmosphere of uncertainty that has made it difficult for businesses to plan for the future. The tariff increases are the latest salvo in an ongoing trade war that began during the Trump administration. Initially, the tariffs were seen as a negotiating tactic, a way to bring China to the table and force them to address long-standing grievances. However, as the conflict has dragged on, it has become clear that both sides are prepared for a prolonged battle. The initial rounds of tariffs, imposed in 2018, were met with retaliatory measures from China, setting off a chain reaction that has disrupted global supply chains and increased costs for businesses and consumers alike. Companies have had to navigate a complex web of tariffs and trade restrictions, leading to delays and increased costs that have ultimately been passed on to consumers. The current escalation has further heightened tensions, casting a shadow over the global economic outlook. Economists warn that the prolonged trade war could lead to a slowdown in global economic growth, as businesses delay investments and consumers cut back on spending due to the increased uncertainty. The trade war represents a fundamental clash between the U.S. and China, each vying for economic and technological dominance. The stakes are high, with both nations seeking to secure their positions as global leaders in key industries such as technology, manufacturing, and finance. The U.S. accuses China of unfair trade practices, intellectual property theft, and forced technology transfer. These issues have been a source of tension for years, with American companies alleging that they have been forced to hand over valuable technology and trade secrets in order to do business in China. China, on the other hand, views the U.S. actions as an attempt to contain its rise as a global power. Chinese officials argue that the tariffs are part of a broader strategy to prevent China from achieving its economic and technological ambitions, and have vowed to resist what they see as American bullying. The escalating trade war has raised concerns about a global economic slowdown, with businesses and investors grappling with uncertainty. The increased costs and disruptions to supply chains have made it difficult for companies to plan for the future, leading to delays in investment and hiring. The International Monetary Fund has warned that the tariffs could shave off 0.8% of global GDP by 2025, highlighting the significant economic risks posed by the ongoing trade dispute. The prolonged conflict has the potential to reshape the global economic landscape, with far-reaching consequences for businesses, consumers, and governments around the world. China's industrial sector, once a powerhouse of global manufacturing, is feeling the heat of the escalating trade war. The trade tensions between the United States and China have been simmering for years, but recent escalations have brought significant challenges to the forefront. Factories that were once bustling with activity are now eerily quiet, and the hum of machinery has been replaced by an unsettling silence. This transformation is not just a temporary blip, it represents a fundamental shift in the global economic landscape. Factory output has plummeted by 15% in the past year, a stark indicator of the economic pain inflicted by U.S. tariffs. These tariffs have made Chinese goods more expensive in the American market, leading to a sharp decline in orders. As a result, many factories have been forced to cut back on production, and some have even shut down entirely. The ripple effects of these closures are being felt throughout the supply chain, from raw material suppliers to logistics providers. The once bustling factories that churned out everything from smartphones to automobiles are now operating below capacity, grappling with reduced demand and rising input costs. The cost of raw materials has surged due to the tariffs, squeezing profit margins and making it difficult for manufacturers to stay competitive. Additionally, the uncertainty surrounding the trade war has made it challenging for businesses to plan for the future, leading to a cautious approach to investment and expansion. The impact of the trade war is particularly evident in China's industrial heartland, where factories are laying off workers and scaling back production. The human cost of this economic downturn is significant, with thousands of workers losing their jobs and struggling to make ends meet. For many, the factory job was a lifeline, providing a steady income and a sense of stability. Now they face an uncertain future with few opportunities for employment in the current economic climate. The decline in manufacturing activity has ripple effects throughout the Chinese economy, impacting upstream suppliers and downstream retailers. Suppliers who once relied on steady orders from factories are now facing dwindling demand, leading to their own financial struggles. Retailers, too, are feeling the pinch, as reduced factory output means fewer products on the shelves and lower sales. This interconnected web of economic activity highlights the far-reaching consequences of the trade war. The slowdown in China's industrial sector is a sobering reminder of the interconnectedness of the global economy and the far-reaching consequences of trade wars. What happens in one part of the world can have a profound impact on economies thousands of miles away. The trade war has disrupted global supply chains, leading to increased costs and delays for businesses around the world. It has also prompted many countries to reassess their trade policies and seek new alliances. The trade war has also accelerated the exodus of foreign companies from China. Many multinational corporations, faced with rising costs and increased uncertainty, are choosing to relocate their manufacturing operations to other countries. This trend is reshaping the global manufacturing landscape, as companies seek to diversify their supply chains and reduce their reliance on China. The departure of these companies is a significant blow to China's economy, as it loses not only jobs but also valuable investment and expertise. Faced with rising costs and increased uncertainty, many multinational corporations are shifting their manufacturing operations to other countries such as Vietnam, India, and Mexico. These countries offer lower labor costs and a more stable business environment, making them attractive alternatives to China. The shift is not just about cost savings, it also reflects a strategic move to mitigate risk and ensure continuity in the face of geopolitical tensions. This trend is likely to continue, further challenging China's position as the world's factory. This diversification of supply chains is reshaping global trade patterns and poses a long-term challenge to China's dominance in manufacturing. As companies spread their operations across multiple countries, they reduce their vulnerability to disruptions in any single location. This new approach to supply chain management is likely to become the norm as businesses seek to build more resilient and flexible operations. For China, this means adapting to a new reality where it is no longer the default choice for manufacturing. The impact of the trade war on China's industrial sector is not merely limited to manufacturing. The country's vast network of suppliers, logistics providers, and service industries that support the manufacturing sector are also feeling the pinch. These businesses are integral to the functioning of the industrial ecosystem, and their struggles are a clear indication of the broader economic challenges facing China. The slowdown in manufacturing has led to reduced demand for their services, putting additional pressure on an already strained economy. The country's vast network of suppliers, logistics providers, and service industries that support the manufacturing sector are also feeling the pinch. These businesses are integral to the functioning of the industrial ecosystem, and their struggles are a clear indication of the broader economic challenges facing China. The slowdown in manufacturing has led to reduced demand for their services, putting additional pressure on an already strained economy. The logistics sector in particular has been hard hit, with many companies reporting significant declines in activity. The slowdown in industrial activity has led to job losses, wage cuts, and reduced investment, casting a shadow over China's economic prospects. The human cost of this downturn is profound, with many families struggling to make ends meet. The reduction in wages and job opportunities has also led to decreased consumer spending, further exacerbating the economic slowdown. As China grapples with these challenges, the need for strategic economic reforms and diversification becomes increasingly apparent. The future of China's industrial heartland hangs in the balance as the country navigates this period of economic uncertainty. The U.S. rationale for imposing tariffs on Chinese goods is multifaceted. At its core, the U.S. government believes that these tariffs are necessary to address a range of economic and strategic concerns. The primary argument is that China has engaged in a series of unfair trade practices that have disadvantaged American businesses and workers. The Trump administration argues that China has engaged in unfair trade practices, such as intellectual property theft, forced technology transfer, and currency manipulation, for years. These practices, they claim, have allowed China to gain an unfair advantage in the global marketplace, undermining the competitiveness of American industries. Currency manipulation, in particular, has been a significant point of contention. By keeping the value of its currency artificially low, China has made its exports cheaper and more attractive on the global market, while making imports more expensive for Chinese consumers. This has contributed to a massive trade imbalance between the two countries. The tariffs, they contend, are meant to level the playing field and protect American jobs and businesses from unfair competition. By imposing tariffs on Chinese goods, the U.S. aims to make these products more expensive, thereby encouraging consumers and businesses to buy American-made products instead. However, the tariffs have come at a cost for the U.S. economy as well. While the intention is to protect American industries, the reality is that tariffs are essentially a tax on imports. This means that the cost of these tariffs is often passed on to American consumers in the form of higher prices. American consumers are facing higher prices for a wide range of goods, from electronics to clothing, as businesses pass on the increased costs of imported goods. This has made everyday items more expensive, putting a strain on household budgets and reducing disposable income. As businesses pass on the increased costs of imported goods, they are also facing higher operational costs. This has led to a complex situation where businesses must balance the need to remain competitive with the necessity of covering their increased expenses. Some businesses have had to make difficult decisions, such as cutting back on staff or delaying expansion plans. This has contributed to rising inflation, eroding consumer purchasing power, and dampening economic growth. Inflation affects everyone, but it hits low- and middle-income families the hardest, as they spend a larger portion of their income on necessities. The increased cost of living can lead to reduced consumer spending, which in turn can slow down economic growth. The tariffs have also created uncertainty for American businesses, particularly those that rely on imported components or export their products to China. Companies that depend on global supply chains have found themselves in a precarious position as the cost and availability of essential components have become unpredictable. The tit-for-tat tariff retaliations have disrupted supply chains, forcing businesses to find alternative suppliers or absorb the increased costs. This disruption has led to delays and increased costs, which can be particularly challenging for small and medium-sized enterprises that may not have the resources to easily adapt to these changes. This uncertainty has weighed on business investment and hiring, hindering economic expansion. When businesses are unsure about the future, they are less likely to invest in new projects or hire additional staff. This can lead to a slowdown in job creation and economic growth, further exacerbating the challenges faced by the economy. Moreover, the tariffs have drawn criticism from American farmers, who have been hit hard by Chinese retaliatory tariffs on agricultural products. Farmers have found themselves caught in the crossfire of the trade war, facing reduced demand for their products and lower prices. China was once a major market for American soybeans, pork, and other agricultural commodities. The loss of this market has had a significant impact on the agricultural sector, leading to financial difficulties for many farmers. The trade war has led to a sharp decline in exports, forcing American farmers to seek government subsidies and explore alternative markets. While subsidies can provide temporary relief, they are not a sustainable long-term solution. Farmers are looking for new markets to sell their products, but this process takes time and may not fully compensate for the loss of the Chinese market. The U.S. China trade war is sending shockwaves through the global economy, creating uncertainty and volatility in financial markets. The escalating trade tensions have raised fears of a global economic slowdown, as businesses and investors grapple with the prospect of a protracted trade conflict between the world's two largest economies. The trade war has also led to increased market volatility. The VIX Volatility Index, a measure of market uncertainty, has surged as investors react to the unpredictable nature of the trade dispute. The bond market has experienced sell-offs, with the 10-year Treasury yield rising to 4.5%, as investors seek safer assets amid the turmoil. The U.S. dollar, typically seen as a safe haven currency, has weakened against other major currencies as foreign investors reduce their exposure to U.S. assets. The trade war has also raised concerns about a currency war, as countries devalue their currencies to gain a competitive advantage in global trade, potentially leading to a destabilizing spiral of competitive devaluations. The trade war's impact is not limited to the U.S. and China. Countries that are heavily reliant on trade with either country are experiencing economic headwinds. For example, export-oriented economies in Southeast Asia are grappling with reduced demand from China, while European countries are facing uncertainty over their exports to the U.S.